Hello everyone. In this video, we'll be discussing another concept in database management systems, that is advantages of DBMS approach. Whenever we are shifting from one paradigm to another paradigm, we'll be thinking of what additional benefits or what advantages I will get by shifting to the new paradigm. Okay, now we'll discuss these advantages of DBMS approach with respect to our previous approach, that is traditional file system. Before, what we were doing, we were storing all the information in the traditional file system. As we saw in previous videos, that before everything was maintained in the file system. We had written application programs for performing different activities. Whatever application programs were written, those application programs were generating their own files. So everything, the output of that program was getting stored in the files. Now let us take an example of a college. In college, every information is maintained in a file. Every file will be having an associated application program, so that whatever changes whatever new entries will be making to that file will be through those application programs. Now already we have everything stored in the file system. Here what happens, a college will have different sections present in it. For example, it will have account section, it will have exam section. Now account section person will be having his own application program to maintain information related to the student. Specifically, he will be maintaining the information related to his fees, whereas a person present at exam section will be trying to maintain all the information related to student regarding only his marks in each subject, that is results. Now here what happens, the data is stored at two places, one at account section, another one at exam section. But in turn, these two data belongs to same student. For example, roll number 1, name ABC. This roll number 1, name ABC, is present once at the account section and it is present once at the exam section. Now that is ultimately what we are doing. We are trying to store this information at two places, that is more than one places. This was our traditional approach. Now by shifting to database management system, what you are trying to do, we are trying to store all the information at one place. We are trying to store all the information at one place and will be forcing all the users to access same data. That is, we are trying to share this database itself. That database will be shared among all the users. For example, account section, then exam section. Both the persons will be accessing data from the stored database itself. Now at one end we are having file system and at the other end we are having our database system. Why exactly we need to shift to the database approach? What exact benefits or advantages I am having, my database approach is having over the file system? That we are trying to discuss in this video. Now let us see the advantages of using database approach one by one. And remember, these advantages are discussed with respect to traditional file system. Let us see the first advantage of using database management systems. That is, first point is controlling redundancy. The point tells, by making use of database management systems or by making use of database approach, I can reduce the redundant data. First thing we need to know is what exactly is meaning of this redundant data. As I told previously in our example, the same information is present or stored once at account section and once at exam section. That is duplication of data. Same data is present at more than one places. When we are storing the data at more than one places, such data is called as redundant data or duplicate data. What is the problem if I store at more than one places? That is the normal question that will arise. Now if I am storing at more than one places, now there can be three problems. First one is need of single logical update. Let us say I am using traditional file system and my data is stored at more than one places. Now I have come to know that my name, there is a mistake in my spelling of my name. Okay, I want to make the update. What I have done, I went to the account section person and I am telling the account section person I want to change my name. The spelling that is stored is ABC, whereas spelling of my name is ABCD. Now, okay, the account section person will update it. He will update it. The need of single logical update means, if whenever, no matter at how many places we are storing the data, if the data is changed at one place, it should be reflected at all the instances of that data. That is the meaning of need of single logical update. That is, if I'm making the changes at account section, that should be reflected at the exam section also. This is the first problem which we are having in traditional file system. Next comes wastage of storage space. Ultimately, same data, same roll number, same name, all the information I am storing at more than one places. Ultimately, I am ending up with wastage of storage space. Next one is data inconsistency. This is a major problem that can arise when we are storing data at more than one places. By inconsistent data, we mean we are having same data stored at more than one places, but the value of the data, that is, for example, the value of the name should be same at all the places. At one place, see, if the single logical update is not possible, what happens? At the account section, your name is stored as ABCD. Sorry, since I went to the account section person and told him to make the update. So my name at the account section is stored as ABCD. Whereas at the exam section, it is still present as ABC. But these two belongs to the same person, same student. When they belong to the same student, value at both the places should be same. They should be ABCD at both the places. Whenever the value of data present at more than one places is different, in such situation, what happens? We end up with data inconsistency. Our whatever data we are storing, it is not consistent. It is not reflecting the real world mini world objects. Okay, so these three are the different problems that are associated with traditional file system. To overcome this, what we are doing in our database management system, we are storing all the information at one place and we will be sharing this database among all the users. The account section person will be accessing same centralized data. Then the exam section person, he will also be accessing same centralized data. So whatever changes we are making to one the name, that will be reflected to both the section persons. Okay, so this is how we can overcome these three problems that are associated with traditional file system approach. And one more thing I should mention here, by using database management systems, we may not be able to provide, we may not be able to eradicate redundancy completely, because at some situations we need redundant data, that is duplicate data, to ensure the relationships among the data. Okay, that we will see in our next points. Okay, so in such situations, what happens, even if we are not able to eradicate the redundancy completely, at least database management system makes sure that this redundancy that what we are having is under control, that is controlled redundancy. So this is the first benefit or first advantage of using database management system over traditional file system. Okay, let us move on to next point, that is restricting unauthorized access. Now previously everything was stored in file system. Okay, it is very difficult to provide security when we are storing all the information in traditional file system. Whereas if we are using database management system, this database management system is completely controlled by database administrator. That is, database administrator, it is his responsibility and he is accountable for breach of security of data. So to achieve this, what this database administrator does, whenever there is a new user, okay, let us say we are taking example of college database. Whenever there is a new user, this DBA will first check whether the new user is a student or a faculty. Okay, if he is a student, what he will do? He will create an account ID, then provided by a password. Okay, and along with that, he will provide access privileges to this new user. Okay, access privileges of users will be different from one user to another user. For example, if I am creating an ID for the student will be able to only retrieve the data. Okay, so his access privilege is whatever data is stored, he is just retrieving the data or viewing the data. Whereas if I am creating an ID for the faculty or an employee, so access privilege for this faculty will include the capability of making updates also. That is, that faculty is provided with the privilege of making modification to existing database. So that employees privileges will be different and students privileges will be different. So ultimately we are trying to provide whatever privileges you are having, you are forced to be within that privileges. So by making use of these two, that is by making use of user ID and a password, we are trying to avoid unauthorized access. So our DBMS should have security and authorization subsystem to enable this feature. So this is second advantage of using database management systems. Let us move on to next advantage. The third point is providing persistent storage for program objects and data structures. Now, before discussing this point, first we need to understand what exactly can be meaning of program objects. We have seen different programming languages. Each programming language will have its whichever program I have written, no matter in which language I have written, I will be making use of variables within that program. So these variables will be allocated memory during its execution. As soon as the execution starts, the memory will be allocated, and during the execution, value for these variables will be updated. So at the end of the program, the ultimate final result of the intention of our program will be stored in that variable. And as soon as the program is terminated, the execution is terminated, the values that are being generated for the values that are being present in that variable will be dropped or deleted. But there can be a situation, that is, I have executed the program now. In some later phases, let us say after some time, I may need this output. I may need value of that variable again. So ultimately, if I'm able to store the value of this variable that is generated by that program, that will be much useful for me. So that is the ultimate point that we are trying to discuss here. The point tells whatever objects, whatever data structures that are generated by the application programs, that are to be able, we must be able to store those values also. The object-oriented databases are compatible with programming languages like the object-oriented programming languages. Whichever as the object-oriented programming languages, our databases are also compatible with such programming languages. So ultimately, what we are trying to see here is whatever values or whatever objects, whatever data structures are generated by the program, our database management system provides an option of storing those values also. So this is the third point. This is the third advantage of using database approach. Next point, that is permitting inferencing and actions using rules. See, ultimately, all of you know the intention of database management system, always a database will have its own mini world. Every database management system, every database will have its own mini world. For example, if I am considering the college database will have the area from which the values will be derived for this database. That is, a college database will be trying to represent the real world objects, real world entities, for example, student, faculty, okay, departments, courses, all these are belonging to a particular college. So when I am maintaining the information of the college database system, whatever values are present, they should be real in nature. That is what is the intention of database. If student 10 is present in the college, that value should be present by database. If student 60 is not present, student with roll number 60 is not present in the college, that means that roll number value should not be present in my database. So ultimately, our database will be reflecting the real world objects. Now here, when we are trying to maintain all the data about real world, that real world will be having rules also. Along with the data that are to be stored, there can be some kind of rules present. For example, if I am maintaining information about an organization, that organization is having a rule that every employee is under probation for 2 years. Now I'm having already I'm having date of joining with me, that is stored in my database already. Okay, if I can provide, if I am able to specify a rule that for example, if I write a query, show me the list of employees under probation, or show me the employees who have completed the probation. If somehow, if I'm able to specify this rule into my database, that will be much helpful for me. Okay, so our database management system provides such capability also. Capability of defining deduction rules for inferencing new information from the stored database facts. For example, rule to decide employees under probation or not. The value for this duration is specified by the user. Okay, we are providing a rule by making use of the capabilities provided by the database approach. I am able to specify such rules also. So this is fourth advantage of database. Let us move on to our next point, which is providing multiple user interfaces. In our previous video, the users of the database approach, there we saw we're having different types of users: actors on the scene, workers behind the scene. Now if we observe, all these users will have their own technical knowledge. What is the technical knowledge of the end user will be different. What is the technical knowledge of a application programmer will be different, and that is how I am trying to interact with my database is different. If I am providing a single interface for everyone, okay, application programmer may find it very easy to interact with the database, whereas to the end user, who is for whom ultimately database is developed, if I am telling him to interact with my database using a programming language, it is not possible. So whatever is the technical knowledge of that user, depending on that, I must make my database to interact with him. Okay, so ultimately what we are trying to discuss here is a database management system provides different interfaces to different types of users. How they are interacting with the database is totally dependent on their technical knowledge. For example, query language interface for casual end user. Remember, casual end users are the persons who are very rarely accessing the database, but each time they may need different information, and they use sophisticated query languages to access the information. So when they are trying to make use of the query languages, my database should provide the capability, or my database should understand what exactly is meaning of query. Okay, so for them, the database is having a different interface. Similarly, programming language interface for application programmers, forms and codes for parametric end users. Parametric end users will not be knowing much of the technical information, that is how data is stored, how to access the stored data, all those things they will not be knowing. So for example, if you consider a clerk present, a clerk will be provided with a window. Okay, if we go to bank, there will be a cashier present. He will be provided with a window where he can enter the account number and just press on submit. As soon as he clicks on submit, he will be displayed with the account balance and transactions. So that's what is his knowledge. If I am telling him to write a programming, if I am making him to make use of programming language, it is not possible. So these parametric end users will be having their own interfaces. Similarly, we are having one more type of user, that is standalone user. Standalone user is the person who is maintaining his own database. Okay, so he may not be having technical knowledge. For him, if the interface is in terms of natural language, that would be much better. So depending upon their technical level of knowledge, our database management system will provide different interfaces to the users. This is fifth advantage of using database management system. Let us move on to next point, that is representing complex relationships among data. Till now we discussed the database management system is storing the real world information. Whatever data is present in the real world, that we are trying to depict in the database. Similarly, that is whatever value is present in the mini world, that should be present in my database. Now I'm trying to control the redundancy also. I'm trying to store information of the real world also. But here we may come across the situations where it is very difficult to find the relationships among data. For example, I'm storing student information. Each student will belong to a course. Okay, that is a kind of relationship. Similarly, that course will belong to particular department, that is also a relationship. Okay, so ultimately, before in traditional file system, what we were doing, we were storing each and everything at one place. There we were unable to specify this relationship. Okay, if you have used during our file programs, you might have seen there will not be particular structure among the data. So representing these relationships among the data is quite difficult by making use of file system approach. Whereas if I'm using database approach, specifying such relationships becomes quite easier. We'll see one mini world example, some mini world relationships. We're considering the college database here. College is having sections, courses, students, then instructors, departments. All these are the values, all these are the entities or objects with existence present in that database. Now there will be relationships among these. Section is a object, course is a object, that is section is having its own identity, course is having its own identity. There can be relationship among them. For example, sections are of specific courses. Similarly, students take sections. Courses have prerequisite courses. For example, if I want to join PG, post graduation, it's compulsion that I must have completed undergraduation in specific subjects. Similarly, instructors teach sections. Courses are offered by departments. This is a relationship between course and department. Students are major in departments. So these are different examples of relationships that are present in the mini word. Now let us see how this can be represented by making use of database approach. For the same relationships, for the same conceptual level relationships, we will try to see how exactly database can be developed and how we can represent these complex relationships. Here in the diagram I have shown example of a database, that is for the same relationships. There we had two different entities, course and section, students and section. Now if we go through the course table is having 4 columns. There course name, course number, credit hours, department. Similarly, section is having section identifier, course number, semester, year and instructor. If we observe, let us concentrate on second table, that is section. Let us see if there was a relationship between section and course. Our first point was telling here sections are of specific courses, that is sections belong to courses. Now if you go through the second table, we are having section identifier followed by course number, semester, year, instructor. Here section identifier, semester, year, instructor, these values actually belong to section table, whereas the course number, the second column from section table, that is course number, its value is derived from the first table, that is course. This was a relationship in our mini word that I am trying to represent in this database. So this is what we call as controlled redundancy also. See, course number is repeated in course table also, and it is also stored in section table also. That is redundant data. Same value we are storing at more than one places, but the ultimate intention of storing at 2 places is to represent the relationship. So to represent the relationship, what we are doing, if there are 2 tables present, we are storing the unique identifier of one table in another table, so that I will be able to link between these 2 tables, which we were calling as a relationship. Okay, similarly we are having grade report table. In grade report table we are having student number, section identifier, grade. Student number belongs to the student table, section identifier belongs to the section table, that is our second table. Similarly, we are having a prerequisite table of which the first column belongs to course, then prerequisite number. So this is how ultimately we are able to represent whatever complex relationship is present among the data that we are trying to store in our database. So this is the 6th advantage of using database systems. Let us move on to next point. Next advantage of database, that is enforcing integrity constraints. By constraints we mean some kind of specification or some rule that is present. Now let us say I will take one simple example. If I am storing to manage information about an organization, I'm trying to create a database for an organization. There is a rule that I want to store all the information about my faculties. I want to store name of the faculties, and that name should be maximum of 10 alphabets. Okay. Then there is one more constraint that I want to store employee number also. This employee number should be only of digits. It should have only numeric values. It should not have any alphabets in it. So simple way of representing such constraints is by making use of data types. Database is having its own set of data types, that is to declare the variables. So in our first constraint, that is name should have 10 name should have alphabets in it, I can make use of data type, that is character data type. Okay, the second constraint was I need to store employee ID, which is only having numbers in it. So just we will declare a variable named as employee number with the data type numeric. So if it is declared as numeric, it will not be able to take alphabet values in it. So this is a simple example of how constraints can be represented by default. There is one more constraint which is called as need of uniqueness. This is the main feature of database approach, that it forces each object to have a unique existence. Okay, at least for one variable the value should be unique. For example, if you take example of the college, in college we will be having students are already having their names. Okay, but in college we will not be identifying the students by using their names. Okay, similarly when we go to the bank, the same student will be having an account there also they are not identifying you by making use of name, but instead in the bank we are making use of account number. In the college we are making use of roll number. The reason is there can be two students or there can be two customers in case of bank with the same name. Okay, but if there are two persons with the same name in my database, I will end up I will be confusing myself about whom I am referring to. So to avoid such situations, what we do is we make use of a separate variable or separate column which is unique. That is, two rows or two persons cannot have same roll number. Two students cannot have same roll number. Similarly, in an organization, there cannot be two employees with same employee ID. So this feature is also possible in database systems. So this is the seventh advantage of using database management systems. Next one is providing backup and recovery. Just now I told we are storing each and every information at one place, and we are just sharing this database among the users. Okay, all the persons are accessing same database. What if suddenly where I am storing the information, if there itself something goes wrong? It can be in terms of software failure or it can be in terms of hardware failure. Okay, so ultimately I will end up in losing all the data that is present. So always a database management system should have its own a recovery module, backup and recovery module, which helps me in recovering the data from software and hardware failures. So friends, these are different advantages of using database approach over traditional file system approach. Thank you.